Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. I seem to be very bright in this viewfinder here today. It's actually night time, it's pitch black outside, and for some reason that seems to be lighting my face up as if I am in a spotlight. It's not very flattering. However, who cares about that? It's plants we're interested in. Actually, when I got off the last video that I made about greenhouse heating insulation costs and saving yourself some money and how to insulate it properly, as is always the case, I thought of a few more things. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through a few more of my greenhouse insulation tips. It's that time of year, it's October now, about midway through October, and I think if you are interested in insulating your greenhouse, I think anything that will save you a little bit of cash is going to be worthwhile for people. I'm sorry if that's not something you're interested in at the moment, but I'm sure it could be useful for some people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those points. There are about 4 or 5 points that I'm going to do. I've got like 20 odd years experience of insulating greenhouses of various sizes, and I have picked things up along the way, and I'm not too proud to say that if anybody has any other tips for me, I'm quite happy to swallow my pride and try something else to save myself some money. So let's jump in. Okay, so it's going to be one of those rough and ready ones. I've just kind of jumped on the camera tonight just while Fudge is out for a walk, and I've got a little bit of time to myself without the family. So the first thing that I forgot to mention, I just do it as a matter of course really, and it's about this bubble wrap. Now, I honestly can't remember where I picked this tip up, and I really don't know how effective it is. I can only kind of speculate as to whether it will actually make a discernible difference. And it's about which way round you put the bubble wrap up. So, if you actually look at a piece of bubble wrap, now this, as we've mentioned before, is a triple laminated 25mm diameter bubble specialist horticultural grade bubble wrap. It isn't packaging bubble wrap, and if you look closely at it, there are 2 distinct differences on each side. So you've got this side is the side that I consider like the bumpy side, and I don't know if you can actually see it. If you look closely at the bubbles, you can just about see that they are, I don't quite know how to explain it really, but it's not completely flat. There are kind of gaps in between the bubbles where it's kind of indented, whereas if you compare it to the other side, you can see like you can definitely see a difference in colour there. It's kind of the plastic there in between the bubbles is a different colour, isn't it? Well, that is like a flat side, and the advice that I was given is to make sure that you put the bumpy side towards the glass. Now, no reasoning was given for that, and I can only speculate that it's something to do with, remember we talked about trapping air. If you've not seen the first video on this is going to be a 2-part video. So this is the second part. The first part was all about insulating your greenhouse. So this part is going to be just 1 or 2 other tips to do a better job of it. So you need to get the bumpy side against the glass. And the reasoning for that, I'm speculating, is that you are creating more of an air gap between the glass, which will bring me on to another point in a second. So again, I don't know anybody who's actually tested this, but you don't want that flat side to be against the glass. That is the side that needs to be on the outside of the bubble wrapping. So it will go against the glass. So there's the side that's flat, and it will go up against the glass like that. Okay, so that's the first tip that I've got for you today. I don't know, as I say, whether that will make a great deal of difference, but that's what I was always taught or told going way back. Another thing to think about is the type of greenhouse you have. Now, I have what's called a Rhino greenhouse. That's the manufacturer. It's a UK company. I think they do sell abroad. I think they sell all over the world. And at first, you might think that they're very expensive greenhouses. Now, when I was looking at greenhouses, they seem to come in 3 tiers. You've got the cheap ones, obviously. You've got the middle ones, and then you've got the very expensive ones. In actual fact, the Rhino greenhouses were the middle tier. Now this greenhouse is a 10 feet by 14 feet greenhouse, and I think it cost all in all about £7,000, which is a lot of money for a greenhouse, and I'm still paying for it, I have to say, and I will be paying for it for another few years yet. But it's been well worth it because it is absolutely solid as a rhinoceros, and there are no gaps anywhere. It's really, compared to my last one was an elite one, and they do, like car manufacturers, greenhouse manufacturers these days seem to do like a whole range of greenhouses, and even the elite greenhouses, which were a similar price to this, were nowhere near as good quality as this one. And I went to have a look at them, in fact, and you could see quite clearly there's gaps in the corners especially. It's where the frame fits together, and we're talking quite big gaps, not just little tiny gaps. Now that's fine for many people. If you're only growing tomatoes and potatoes and temperate style plants, or you're only trying to keep your greenhouse to, say, 5 degrees Celsius over winter, then that won't be a problem for you. You might as well go for something a little bit cheaper and save yourself some money there. But I knew I was going to be doing tropical plants, and any savings that I can make in the heating department over time will definitely pay dividends. Now I used to have an elite greenhouse. I had one for 20 odd years, and it was absolutely fine. And in fact, the guy that come to take it down, it was so well put together. It took him about 2 days to get it apart. So yeah, anyway, it's horses for courses, isn't it? So for me, the money that I paid for this was actually like in the medium range, the mid-range of greenhouses. There are a lot of greenhouses or greenhouse manufacturers out there that wanted a lot more money. We were talking for the same kind of size, you were talking like £25,000-30,000. I'm not going to name the manufacturers. Certainly these that were like a mixture of, I think it was Canadian, Canadian ash? No, that doesn't sound right. Some kind of wood anyway that supposedly didn't degrade in any way, didn't rot in any way, and it was like a mixture of the wood and metal. They were really nice, but they were very, very expensive. And I come across all sorts of various bespoke companies that did similar things, and again they were a lot more expensive, as you'd imagine if it was some kind of bespoke thing. This is kind of an off-the-shelf greenhouse, if you like. So picking the right greenhouse is a big factor. If you're planning on growing tropical plants or any kind of plants that need warmth throughout the year, then choose a greenhouse that's going to last, and make sure you go and have a look at it and choose something that is solid and doesn't have gaps all the way around. If you go and see the demonstration ones and you can see gaps everywhere, then that's not really going to be good for you. So we've talked about the way around of the bubble wrap, we've talked about the greenhouse as a choice. Now obviously if you've already got one, there's nothing you can do about that. In my last greenhouse, I did manage to stuff bits of bubble wrap into those gaps, so there is a way around it, but obviously something that is really solid is going to be of benefit. We didn't talk about this curtain here. So this is we're actually in the warmer side of the greenhouse now. This is kept to 18 degrees. And the other side, through here, is kept to 12 degrees. So I needed some kind of a curtain that I could get through that also had insulative properties. And this was what we eventually settled on. So this was I think it was about £23-24, which I actually thought is a fantastic bargain, really. It's basically just velcroed all the way around to the wooden frame, and then you simply, if you look at the bottom down here, I've turned it up a little bit, I've customised it a bit because it didn't quite fit the gap that I had, but it's got weights at the bottom which make it swing shut, so when you open it and you walk through it and then you leave go, and the magnets and the weights bring it together again, which is really good. It's quite good, thick, pretty good insulating kind of plastic. I doubt it's as good as the bubble wrap for insulative properties, but it suits my purposes. I did have bubble wrap on like a roll-up door that I made myself, but that was a real pain doing that every time I wanted to walk through, because if you can imagine, if I'm watering over here and I'm going backwards and forwards, it's nice to be able to just do that. And what I've done, I've put bubble wrap around the sides as well. I'm going to put another layer actually this year to make that a little bit more solid. so that there's no kind of leakage through from one to another, because it all helps over time. Okay, so what I've done today, in fact, is I have put a link in the description to all the kit that I use in the greenhouse, and I've just actually set up like affiliate links for Amazon and for eBay. So if there's anything that you see in my greenhouse that you're interested in purchasing, by all means go through my affiliate link. It won't cost you any more, and I'll get a tiny, and believe me, it will be tiny, we're talking pence or cents if you're in America, a few little pence. It won't cost you anything else extra, and it will just help me to fund this very expensive hobby here. So that will be very, very much appreciated. It's as good as a like, if you like. So anyway, that's the door. So you might want to think about having a door like that. I've talked about in the past my strip. I think I talked about it in the last one, the strip curtain. So I won't go into details about that, except to say there is also a link in the description that takes you to where you can buy one of those. So what else have I got on my list here? Right, the louvre windows. So underneath here, and I've got 5 of them. You can just see there's a louvre window there. It's like a 5 louvre window. So I've got 5 of those dotted around the greenhouse. And as you can see, I've bubble wrapped the outside of it. And I've also put some insulating foam, because the windows don't actually close completely. There's about a 4 or 5 millimeter gap when the louvre window is closed, which is obviously no good. So I've put this bubble wrap over the top. However, when I was doing it, especially, it must have just been the day that I was doing it on when the way the wind was blowing, but this one over here, there was a real breeze coming through. So what I've decided to do is, I've not done it yet, but on the outside of that, I think it's about a 2 foot square, I'm going to stick another 2 foot square of bubble wrap completely covering that louvre window, and I'm going to do that with all my louvre windows all the way around. I don't normally like to do the outside of the greenhouse just because of the aesthetics of it, but in this case I think it will pay dividends in the end, because it will prevent that breeze blowing in, because there's obviously still some little gap despite the foam. So that's another thing to think about. If you have louvre windows, are yours as easy to allow the wind or the breeze or the cold to come through as mine are? And you might have other windows that are similar, or other gaps, like I say, especially in the corners. Check all the corners of the framing, because that can definitely be a place where there can be a breeze coming in. So when I saw that and saw what was happening there, I thought I'd better check up on my vents. Now, as it happens, because these are all double vents, they're very, very heavy, and I do have bubble wrap underneath there as well. So they fit really tightly, and there was no breeze there. What you can do, actually, it reminds me of an ad that was in the UK a number of years ago for windows. I think it was Everest windows. You can basically just drop a feather somewhere, or hold a flame, like a candle flame, all around your greenhouse, and if it flickers, you can see there's probably going to be some kind of a breeze coming in, so that's worth doing. So yeah, so we talked about the curtain. We can seal all the outside louvre windows, which is what I'm going to do. While we're on that subject, I did once bubble wrap the entire outside of the greenhouse. Now that, on the face of it, seems like a really neat solution to avoiding having to take all your plants out of the greenhouse. Now, obviously, I didn't have that problem because I left most of it insulated throughout the year. But it's still been it's not an easy job. Even with the small amount that I had to do. I had to do the vents, I had to do the louvre windows. But even with just that number, I've still not finished it. I've done the warmer side, because obviously that's the side that I'm keeping it at the warmest. The temperatures at the moment outside are not really too bad. I want to keep the cooler end to 12 degrees Celsius, and at the moment the temperature just occasionally is dipping below that. I think we had a 4 degrees one night, but during the day it's fine. It's going up to like 15, 16 at the moment. So I've not finished it here yet, so you can see that's still to be done, and I run out of bubble wrap as well, so I'm waiting for that to happen, or to arrive. What do I think about bubble wrapping the outside of the greenhouse? If you've got a small enough greenhouse, then that could be a solution for you. The only thing that I would worry about, and like I say, I've done it myself before. I think I actually did inside and outside at one point before. So that's dedication for you, isn't it? The only issue with it is that I wonder whether you are able to get that seal of air inside that bubble wrap. That could be an issue. I don't know, you might be able to do it, but just having that layer of air between the bubble wrap and the glass is what makes the difference. It's that what's actually preventing the vast amount of the cold or the heat escaping, cold getting in, that exchange of heat. So you really need to make sure that happens. Now, if you're going to do the outside, it could be a little tricky. The other issue, of course, you've got is that very often it's very damp and you're trying to tape things up that are very damp. Now, okay, I get condensation in here, but when I first do it, like now, it's not that humid, and because it's not that cold outside, so I'm able to seal everything up. I'm able to use the tape before things go too damp and it's too bad. I don't know, it might work for you. It's worth a try, but I would definitely say that's something to consider. You know, you don't want to start this big massive job of bubble wrapping the outside only to find that things won't stick. Obviously it's going to get the worst of the weather, and you don't want it all kind of coming off at the worst time of the year. You want it to stay in place and to keep protecting and keep insulating your greenhouse. Another possibility, and I've seen this in some of the other older guys' greenhouses who grow orchids, is actually cladding the inside with polycarbonate. Now, I've thought about this myself. The one that I've seen is obviously they want to keep bright light coming in from the roof, but what I've seen them do is, because they're using grow lights, they've kind of sacrificed the side walls, if you like, and they've clad in polycarbonate all the way up to the eaves of the greenhouse. So that might be something that's worth doing. Now, again, I've no idea how effective that is when you think that for the most part the heat is lost through things like doors, windows, and more than anything else, the roof. The roof is where it's going to go. If you've got your polycarbonate up the sides, is that going to make any difference? I don't know. I'd like to see. It'd be great if people or somebody would do some kind of scientific study on this, but I suppose there's no great call for it at the moment anyway. So yeah, so that's another possibility, something else to try. Get some polycarbonate. I don't think it's massively cheap from what I've seen, but you know, again, once you've got it, haven't you? And the other issue, of course, is that you can get an awful lot of algae on polycarbonate. The other thing I wanted to mention was costs. So again, I've shown this once before, but I was watching Gardener's World the other night, and Monty Don goes over the same stuff every year, year in, year out. It's elephant garlic, it's what to do with your lawn in autumn and so on, and we all still watch it. So I thought I'd mention, if you have one of these gizmos down here, and mine's getting a little bit of black stuff on it. So basically what this does is it will just tell you how much your gadget is costing. So you plug in whatever gadget you want to find out that's costing. So this one is actually plugged in to my heater over here in the cool side, and you program into it like a cost per unit. So it's going to be like per kilowatt hour. I can't remember what it was per kilowatt hour, but it keeps like a running total of how much it's costing you. So you can come in every day, you can record exactly what it cost you yesterday and then what it cost you the day after and so on, or build up. And I used to do this, and I've shown this on a number of occasions in a little book over there. I used to record it. I've not done it this year, this like kind of season, this winter, because I've got a good idea of what it's costing me now, but I did it for a number of months, pretty much right the way through to the middle of summer. So I knew exactly per month what it was costing me to heat the greenhouse. Now the usefulness of that is that you can then tweak. If you can see what's happening and whether you think it's too much for you and you need to add some more insulation, or you need to look for some more gaps, or to see what else there is you can do to lower things, that's worth it. Again, I've got a link in the description to the one that I bought, but there are several to look at. I think it's just known as a power unit or a power meter, something like that. So they're well worth having. Okay, so what else have we got? So that's the cost. So there's one more thing to mention, and that is once it's done, well, it's not done. because what you need to do then is every time you're in your greenhouse, you need to be checking and looking. Now I've just stood over here just as I'm speaking to you. What can I see? I can see a gap. Looking over here, now this has actually been up all through the year, so I've not really paid much attention to that. It's come undone. So what's happened there is, as the greenhouse is getting colder on the outside and it's being kept warmer on the inside, and sometimes even this weatherproof tape does come off. It gets a little bit of moisture behind it and it comes off. It's easily fixed. Just buy yourself some more tape, but you've got to keep looking and checking these things, because you only need one night for something to come undone, and that can really make quite a big difference to your costs for that night. So that was my last little tip. I only thought of all these tips once I got off my last video. So if you've not seen the last video, I'll put a link in the description there. I'll even pin it as a comment. I'll link to the last one on greenhouse insulation and saving yourself some money and heating your greenhouse over winter. And there's just a few more tips that I've thought of there. If I think of anything else, I'll jump on and do another video. It can help save us all a little bit of money. And if you've got any tips of your own, by all means stick them in the comments. Love to hear from people. And that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And for now, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.